All right, today we got a Lt1 here from a local customer. It's going to be a stroker. I think it's going to be a 416, I'm pretty sure. It's been studded and they've done the cylinders. It's supposed to have been torque plate honed and all that jazz. But I don't even remember why it got here. But anyway, it's here and they wanted me to check over everything, and so we're just gonna check everything. And we got it in the line honed, and it's been studded and line honed already. So I torqued everything and checked it, and so we've seen a couple of issues. So hang loose, we're gonna get into the whole deal, and we're gonna do a series on this engine too. All right, so after we torqued everything, we checked all the mains, and I believe the number 5 is about 3/10 smaller than the minimum dimension. So, and as the housing bore shrinks or grows, it directly affects the running bearing clearance. So, if the mains are big, you're gonna have, bigger clearance. If the mains are tight, you're gonna have tighter clearance. So, and we see it pretty regular. If they're below the minimum, it'll really shrink up the bearing clearance, and which is an issue. So I don't think it's going to take any more than basically just us to hone through it both directions and bring it up to the middle of the tolerance, and it'll be fine. Once we get this done, and I don't know why, but the block wasn't decked. So they've done all the work and they never decked the block. So once we get this done, we're gonna deck it, and we'll get the torque plates on, check the cylinders, and the block hasn't been notched to clear the rod, and I'm pretty sure these need notching just like the Gen 4 stuff. So we'll check all of that, and then we're gonna balance the crank and all, and so we'll have, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 episodes on this thing. But we're gonna do the line home today, and so we'll bring you in here and show you what the gauge says. Let me confirm in our set ring that we are good. Yep. So let me make sure I bumped it. We're good. Just want to make sure. All right, so that one's about a half big. That one is just dead on 0. That one's about a half big. That one's dead on 0, and I believe this one, yeah. So that's about 2.5 tenths too small. So that number 5 is the problem. So what we're gonna do is, like I say, we'll just dust a hole through it and bring it up to the right dimension. But visually everything looks fine. I don't see no real. But this is a common thing. I see some big, I see some little, and that's the major reason we had these setting rings made, because it just takes all the guesswork out. You put your dial bore gauge in the setting ring, and the setting ring is made for the engine you're working on, and you make it read 0 and you're done. There ain't no fiddling with no setting fixtures and micrometers and all of that jazz. And another question that I've got a bunch on some of these line honing videos is how the line hone manual works. And so let me lay it up on top so we can just have a slight conversation about it. So these guide shoes move in and out, and these stones move in and out. And everybody says, well, this mandrel's heavy, so why is it not just going down in the mains, because the block's aluminum, and moving the crankshaft center line down. And so the way we combat that, and it's odd that it works, but it works. So we have these pins, and it's already set because I'm just constantly doing LSs. We have these pins that go in here on both sides. And so you would put this mandrel in, and on the center main, the cap would be off. And these pins will rest on the actual saddle of the block. And so you can move up or down. And so if you move the center line of the mandrel up, you can move the center line of the crank up. So we can sort of counteract the weight of the mandrel moving the center line of the crank closer to the camshaft. And so I haven't had any problem. I mean, I can line home stuff and it'll be, we won't move the crank center line, you know, a couple of thousandths. So actually you are going to get to see the setting because it's not set for a LS. So I'm going to pop, so what I'll do is I'm going to pop this center cap off, and then we'll get the mandrel in, and then I'll show you how we set the height of the mandrel in the block. So hang loose a minute. All right, so come on in here, and so we got the cap off, we got our pins in, and then if you'll notice, so it's setting on the guide shoes, and you can see that the mandrel is too high. So we take our little handy dandy, grab the tool right there, our little handy dandy tool, and we let the shoe down. Get in there, it's got a little, there it goes. We let our shoe down till that stops. We want the pins to lay on the mains. And I always just leave a little play, and that brings the mandrel up just a few thousandths. And that way, anything we do, we can try to maintain that center line. So I see a red flag already. So this is the main cap off. And I don't know if you can see that texture, but all of them lines are going in one direction. And that is from a belt sander. I'm 90% sure. And I see that pretty regular. And if you, do we got any, oh yeah, right here. So I got a cap, let me grab a cap that we cut. All right, so this is a cap off of the LS9, and you can see the pattern in the cap from the actual grinder. We got a CBN wheel on our grinder that cuts the caps. So the problem with the belt sander is with the cap grinder, you know, we're holding that cap in a fixture and then stroking it across the grinding wheel, versus on a belt sander, you know, you just set it down and the belt's running, so you have no way to make sure that the cap, the face stays parallel or perpendicular with the actual block. And where you get into trouble with that, let me put this cap back, where you get into trouble with that is, like, this is a perfect example. This is a thrust cap, and so, you know, this, we got two halves of a thrust that need to stay together, right? So if this cap was belt sanded crooked, for a lack of a better term, then, you know, it's on there and it's leaning this way or this way, then the thrust surface is only touching at the top on one side and at the bottom on the other side, so you're not getting that full thrust face to engage. So that's why, it's just cornbread to do it that way. And maybe some people don't have a cap grinder and are they lazy, or I don't know, but that's a bad deal. So we're going to have to confirm that the thrust face is good, and we may end up having to work on that cap to fix that problem. But anyway, that's how we set up the mandrel and get all of that situated. So we'll get the mandrel out, we'll get the cap torqued again, and then we'll come back when we're ready to start line honing. All right. So this dial down here is how we raise the stone, and we just put light tension on it. I keep it loose enough where I can still push it. We'll bring our coolant down. And then there's one more setting. So if you look at that center line, you can see the mandrel is low from the driver. So we need to bring the entire block up. So it's got a gear system. Let me put this ratchet over here. It's got a gear system that we can just raise it. And this ain't like super critical. It's just, it needs to be close. We don't want the block in a bind. So, and another thing I seen is, all this work's been done to this block, and it's been washed and all of that, and it's still got the old cam bearings in it. So they never replaced the cam bearings, which is another red flag. So I'm scared as we go, we're going to find several more red flags, but hopefully not. Maybe it'll all just pan out. And yeah, the stops is good. Yeah, so it's not usually like if they're out of line or something. When I start, I can feel it in the mandrel. It'll be kind of jumping around, and it's not doing that. So that's a good sign that all 5 bores are, relatively in line. So and it ain't gonna take much to do what we got to do. So we'll check it there and see what we got. And of course, I didn't get a rag. All right. Let's see what she says. Yep, so now this one's, like 4/10 over the minimum. Yeah. So the only thing that sucks, and it's not a big deal, like, the end of the world or nothing, but this one's 4/10, and then like this one is almost 1/1000, because this one was like 6/10 when we started. So that's the problem with a lot of this stuff is, if it's wrong to start with, it's hard. I mean, it's in, but it's just not like I would like for it to be. Then that's like, I can't see. Yeah, that's about 7/10 over. So that's not. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. So we got a couple of 3/10 or so variation. But that's all it took to just get it, get it back in spec. But like I say, with this one being small, that's going to affect bearing clearance and create an issue. So now that we got that corrected, what we'll do is we'll get this thing out and get it washed up, and then we'll deck it. Yep, we'll deck it, and we'll just make that another video. But I need the line hone for another job, and I already had this setting in, so I wanted to try to get this video done today. But like I say, this will be episode 1 of this project, and we'll just keep going till we get her done. All right, thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.